Sweet. So this is the introduction to Salesforce1 Mobile Application Development with Visualforce. We tried to come up with a longer title, but we couldn't. That about hits it. Straight up, I'm going to tell you some things about Visualforce development, some things you probably already knew, some helpful tips, all for making your Salesforce1 mobile client, the one that you can download from the App Store or from Google, work with your Visualforce pages or vice versa. Now, the interesting thing about being a Salesforce employee, the interesting thing about Dreamforce is that everything that, many things that I tell you in this session today will be rendered anachronistic probably by the time, this time tomorrow. Okay, so we've got some announcements coming up that will take and launch mobile development for Salesforce1 for the mobile client, not custom development, but strictly for the use with the mobile client. We're taking that to a new level. You'll hear some more things about that tomorrow in the coming days. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Everything's applicable. Things are just going to get better. The session, we've got about 32 minutes left, and we'll consume all of that. We'll leave about 5 minutes for questions and answers at the end. Fair enough? Sound good? Okay, we're all in the right place. So let's, there we go. That's me. I'm a platform architect. How many, anyone ever familiar with the safe harbor slide? Do I need to go over this with anyone? Running joke. How many Salesforce, Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud, Service Cloud users out there today? How many folks are running Salesforce in your environments? All right, cool. A lot of hands. That's excellent. How many folks are using the Salesforce1 mobile client in your environments? Fair amount of hands too. Excellent. How many are doing custom development for the Salesforce1 mobile client? A lot of hands. Excellent. How many geeks in the room? Every hand should go up. All right. Even if you don't think you're a geek, you're just here to learn. You might even have stumbled over here from the campground, and you find yourself in the dev zone and transported by the crowd in here. Everyone is a geek today in my room. Okay, and we're glad to have you. So Salesforce1, and first off, Salesforce, the company, Mr. Benioff, our 111, okay, our foundation. You've got the company, the name, CRM. And then you have Salesforce, the application, right, which is our world-leading CRM, customer relationship management, Salesforce automation tool. Everyone knows that. Then you have Salesforce1, the platform. How many were in my epic session this morning, demystifying the Salesforce1 mobile, Salesforce1 platform? Anyone? A couple of you were in my session this morning. You know how kick-ass that is, right? All right. And then you have Salesforce1, the mobile client. All right, and that's where we're going to focus on today. So where can I use it? How do I use it? And how can I make it better? Those are really the three questions that hopefully you'll have some answers to by the time you leave this room today. Okay, so we'll start with how can I use it? All right, so Visualforce can be displayed in several areas using the Salesforce1 mobile client. Most notably in the left-hand navigation panel, right? So when you hit the triple there, I call it the Big Mac. Is there a technical name for those three horizontal lines that bring you to the nav mem? What are they? The hamburger? That's what they call it. I call it the Big Mac, so I wasn't far away because it's like 2 all-beef patties with 3 pieces of bread, and that's what I thought of. But it takes you to the left-hand nav, right? And there are some tips and tricks about just learning how to figure out that left-hand nav, because as a lot of you are familiar with, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's because you haven't used the Salesforce1 mobile client. But navigating in the client's a little bit different than using the full-on website because you've got this little screen. All right, so instead of operating and clicking on the app and then looking at your tabs and then I need to go to the warehouse or I need to go to the merchandise section, instead you hit the triple decker and you're over the left-hand nav panel and you can access your objects. You access the data and those applications that have been exposed to you. And one of those means of exposing information to you is my Visualforce page or whatever. Okay? You can expose your Visualforce pages there. And the trick to doing that, right, is when you design your Visualforce page, there's that little checkbox on the record for that Visualforce page that says enable for mobile client. All right, so you've got to check that box first. And then the next thing that you need to be able to do, all right, is go into the mobile navigation in setup. How many admins out there know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. And the developers, you should know too. And you go into the mobile navigation, then you can, once you've checked that page, you can make it available for the client on the left-hand nav. Now, some of you are out there saying, hey, you know what, Gordon, I did everything that you said, but that ding-dang thing just still does not show up in my left-hand nav panel. And it doesn't show up in the menu for the mobile navigation as well. What am I missing? You're missing probably, and this is where I've seen people get messed up, when you create a Visualforce page to expose in that left-hand nav panel globally, all right, it can't inherit from or leverage the standard controllers. You have to use a custom controller, all right? Conversely, when we get to using it as a publisher action, and this applies for publisher actions as well too. Publisher actions, those global actions, okay, you cannot inherit you can't use the standard object controller. You have to use a custom object controller, all right? When you get into object actions on a specific record, does everyone know what I'm talking about there? Okay, if you don't, then ask the question and I'll reiterate that. But you can have specific publisher actions that are tied to, say, for instance, you have a merchandise object and you have a reference to a warehouse for that merchandise object. You can actually have a publisher action that will let you maybe make a change to that warehouse because it's related to that merchandise object. So that's an object-specific publisher action. Those have to use the standard controller. All right, and I cover that a little bit later. So publisher actions are great, right? The little cloud on the lower right-hand side, you hit that thing. You know, you can customize that little cloud too, right? Okay, I think there's a session out there on customizing Salesforce1, the mobile client. This isn't it. But you hit that little cloud, and you get the little publisher action that'll pop up, and then you can select, you know, a file or log a post, or your custom activity as well. Okay? So let's continue down there. Page layouts are another place. Again, if you use a Visualforce page in your page layout, whether that is on the standard web browser interface or on the mobile client interface, has to leverage the standard object controller. Okay, whatever object you're on for that page, that record type. Okay, you have to use the standard controller. All right, but that will get you that in the page layouts, and you can do that in, like I said, in the browser as well as sections within your mobile layout as well. Mobile cards as well. You can create flexi pages. All right, anyone done any flexi page development? Does anyone heard of flexi pages? All right, so a couple of hands are going up. That's good, because one of the things that we're going to announce this week is a new mechanism for creating these flexi pages, because it's really very powerful. But until now, it's been a lot of XML-based development to make those flexi pages sort of sing the way that these things are. One of the announcements coming, and I'm not going to tell you what, changes all of that. And it's really, really nifty stuff. So pay attention to the platform developer keynote, which is tomorrow. The platform keynote session, which is Wednesday afternoon, I think at 2, and some announcements that are coming tomorrow. You want to check that out. So some things to remember, all right? We've actually, before we get to things to remember, and you're going to have to bear with me on this because I'm driving somebody else's laptop. It's like any grillers out there like to go out and barbecue in your backyard all winter long? Seriously, I do it. I cook on the grill all year round. But you're over at somebody else's house, and somebody says, hey, can you give me a hand? And you're at somebody else's grill. It's a foreign environment. You don't want to touch it. So I'm driving somebody else's laptop. What I'm using here, here's the Salesforce1 client, okay? But this is the HTML5 version of that client, meaning I'm not using any native device. The client that you download from the App Store or from Google Play is what we would call a hybrid client. It's using a container that's been developed for the device, and then it uses some level of the HTML5 and all of the other deliciousness that we do on the Salesforce side of the house. If you don't have that client, or if you don't, for whatever reason, can't use the Salesforce1 mobile client that's installable, you can always go to the HTML5 native version of that by simply typing in your URL. Wait, are you seeing this on my screen? No, you're not. How do I make this show on the screen? Do I have to drag it to another place? Hang on, maybe if I minimize that. No. All right, so I'm displaying in two regions here, and I apologize. I just realized that that's not there. AV guy, if you've got a second, can you just kind of tell me what I need to do? Do I need to drag it to another location? So I've got this main screen. I'm trying to show this. It's seeing the presentation. Do I need to end the presentation, or? Are you guys? I'm excited about this. No, that's okay. Go ahead and close it. Yeah, Google. Yep. Oh, disco. That's what we want. AV club, baby. If you've got kids in there in high school, they should be in the AV club, and teach them to code too. So this is the, now you can see it. Now you're saying, what was he talking about? All I see is the screen. This is the Salesforce1 Mobile client, but it's the HTML5 version. If you didn't know this, you can do this on any browser, okay? Whether it's Opera or Safari or even Microsoft now. We support the Internet Explorer mobile browser on their mobile devices. So, and that's something that we've talked about here at Dreamforce. But where am I going with this? Here's the HTML5 client. Notice some changes down here. You don't see this in the mobile client yet, but the navigation, remember the little cloud on the lower right-hand side, the publisher action? That's been collapsed down to the bottom now. You'll see that in the HTML5. It'll catch up to the mobile client soon enough. That's one of the things, but what I wanted to show you was, here is, so I've got this nice little find warehouses. In fact, yep, yes, allow. Okay, so here's my little green location markers, a nice little map. This is just a simple use of the Google Maps API. I'm happy to show you the code, but let me see if I can't zoom out. The crazy thing is about the Wi-Fi in this place. Anyone recognize the map here? So so remember, your HTML5 browser, right, doesn't really have GPS built in, but it uses some magic around the internet to figure out where you are. Well, the Wi-Fi, for whatever reason, is being routed through or running through Los Angeles. So the map thinks I'm in LA right now, which doesn't really help me for my demonstration unless I want to show you just how powerful this stuff really is. So that's what I want to do. So I've got a demonstration that I'm showing you that's dependent on warehouses on a map. Well, those warehouses happen to be in San Francisco. They're not helping me at all here. But let's take a look at how powerful Salesforce is, right? So I can come down here. Let's go to my warehouses. Let's go to right here, the Marin Factory Store. This is here in San Francisco. I'm going to edit this. And you'll notice that I'm using right here, I've got location, latitude, and longitude. If you didn't know, we just went GA on geolocation attributes for your records, whether it's a standard object like an account or an opportunity or custom objects that you're building. You can now program in geolocation. So in this case, I actually took the liberty of grabbing some locations that were available to my map in Los Angeles. And this serves two purposes here, right? One is to show you that I can cut and paste, which is, it's good to know that your speaker can cut and paste, although we haven't seen it successfully yet. But the other thing is to really show the power of a metadata-driven declarative environment and Salesforce1. Because one of the nifty things about Salesforce1 is that once you've installed the client, as you make changes, as your applications evolve, as things like your map don't figure out where you're at or you add new locations, you don't need to be downloading new applications. You don't have to download a new version of the application onto your phone. You make changes to the app, and that metadata and that structure gets translated directly and immediately to the app that's processing it on your, or whether it's a mobile device or you're using the HTML5 version. So let's go ahead and cut this last one in. I can't cut and paste. There we go. So I'll save that. Now this should put us into an area on the map. If I come back here, I might need to reload the page. Let's reload this. Boom! There we go. And if I hover over this, I can see just by making the change to the information in my record. Everyone catch that? Just change the location of my factory, and I've magically moved it to, I think it's like Mike's Coffee Shop in LA. But for declarative purposes, very easy for me to make a change in my logic, in my application, and have that immediately available to my mobile client. I think that's pretty huge, right? And then if I wanted to, right there, you know, I can go ahead and select the Marin County store, and boom, I'm brought right to the record. I can make some changes, do what I want to do. Here's the lat long that I just popped in there, okay? So very nifty to be able to simply make changes to your application. And I changed an existing attribute just so that I could show this to you, but think about this, right? As you're adding attributes, as your business changes, you can add attributes, change your data model a little bit, and all the user has to do is just simply tug on the application and it'll refresh and you have those things available to you. So some things to remember about Salesforce1 and Visualforce, right? Apex, right there on the page type, you use the HTML5.0, okay? Got to get that in there. If you don't have Visualforce with that, you're going to refactor it. And let's be clear, all right? Visualforce that you constructed a year ago or 2 years ago works fine in the browser. Visualforce pages that you build to deliver a browser experience, okay, will need to be refactored. There's no auto magic today that will take a Visualforce page and cause it to render deliciously like you think it should on a 4x5 screen or a 3x4 screen, okay? So there's some refactoring involved. And so right there, the HTML5, you need to get that in there. There's the checkbox on the Visualforce record page itself that it's available for Salesforce1 Mobile Apps. If you don't have that checked, you can play all day long. It won't show up on the device. Standard controller to use the page layout, mobile cards, a publisher action. Visualforce page must use a custom controller in global publisher actions, or if you want it to show up in that left-hand nav, right? Did I do something wrong? No. Okay. No, that's good, thanks. I'm so glad I've got this guy here. All right, so now how do I use it with the user interface? This goes back to just pretty much what I was saying, right? Cannot automatically make Visualforce pages mobile optimized. So you've got to think about those Visualforce pages, what you're doing with them today. If they're an instrumental part of your browser experience, okay, then your options are to either refactor that so that you can take into consideration and do the checks to say, am I being rendered in a browser? Show this. Am I being rendered on a phone? Show this. Okay, has to be done. But there are tools to make that easy, right? In terms of user interface, user experience, the things you want to consider, and I think that these are all pretty much, if you haven't occurred to you, they won't sound like a no-brainer. I mean, they're all pretty much no-brainers, right? You've got to take advantage of the limited real estate and use the tools that are available to help you do that, right? Figure out which form factors your page has to support, right? The little thought that goes into it. Do I know that my users are going to be looking at this on the mobile device? If you even suspect that the answer is yes, then go the extra mile and do it, because it probably is yes, and they're going to look at it. And if you haven't, they're just going to make your life terrible anyhow. So just do it for them. Develop for the mobile context, right? Geolocation, camera, you can use those features where they're appropriate, right? Where you can. If you know that your folks are downloading and leveraging the hybrid container, they're installing it from the App Store, you're encouraging that, then that container has built into it the ability to leverage the camera, geo positioning, and other device capabilities, right? The HTML5 version, that's coming along, and actually you can use the geolocation. I just did it, you just saw that on the browser. You can also use that with the device as well, and the camera too. Okay, mobile, the last bullet there in yellow is probably the most important, right? Optimize for your most common mobile use case, okay? Whether it's discovery or data entry or search. Typically, and again, these are probably more, I think, standard operating procedure than anything else, but typically you want to focus that mobile experience on, you might have heard us use the term micro moments, okay? You're not going to have a guy fill out an entire order form on the mobile device. That's insane. Or your customers, perhaps, all right, or your partners. Capture only the information that's required for you to save the record. Use defaults. Attributes, okay, if they're required. That way, at least you can present 3 or 4, 5 attributes at most, something that I can see on a screen to allow me to save a record and move on, okay? And then lastly, responsive design, okay? If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's out there. There's a lot of work that's been done on it, and there are a lot of functional libraries, and we'll see in a second, to help you with that. Okay, so making those Visualforce pages mobile optimized, that link really comes in very badly, but I'll tell you what it says. All you need to do is go to developer.salesforce.com, click on the mobile button, and then pick your menu of options, and the thing that you're looking for are the mobile templates. All right, so there are templates that are available on the developer.salesforce.com website. And if you didn't know that existed, that's like your one-stop shop for anything developer-wise, and everyone in here right now, because you raised your hands, are geeks. All right, so the developer stuff is important. So Twitter Bootstrap. Anyone familiar with Twitter Bootstrap, using it in their devices? I would expect to see more hands go up than not, because that's probably the most prevalent. Has anyone used the Salesforce Foundation version of the Twitter Bootstrap? All right, so this thing is a great piece of work. It's done by one of our foundation engineers, and it is an implementation of Twitter Bootstrap, but with the style guide of the Salesforce1 Mobile Client applied. So the colors, the look, the feel, the attributes. All right, I'm going for this again by myself. Closing out of screen mode. Going back to the browser, that's great. If you're curious, I just want to point this out to you because this is huge. sfdc-styleguide.heroku.app, thank you. Oh, it took me to I don't want that, I want the page. No, that's the app guidelines. Sorry about that. That's it. Okay, so if you can remember the URL, sfdc-styleguide.herokuapp.com, this will give you everything in soup to nuts if you want to build apps that look exactly like the Salesforce1 Mobile Client, the standard downloadable app. This is absolutely the place to go, okay? It'll give you everything that you need to be able to look at and design mobile applications using the same look and feel, so that if you wanted to create a Visualforce page that didn't stand out like a sore thumb, blended nicely into the mobile client, this is the place to go. All right, sorry about that little delay. Wanted to point that out to you. So things to remember, Visualforce page, good. All right, let's go back to presentation mode. Perfect. So the foundation, the Bootstrap SF1 and then also the Community Bootstrap fork as well. So there are a couple of bootstraps out there, but I think that the SF1 Bootstrap version is probably the best implementation. Alrighty. So there's Twitter Bootstrap, the Ionic framework. I'm not terribly familiar with that. It's out there. Ratchet is another one that's gaining in popularity. I think they were actually even here at the show as well. jQuery, I think everyone's familiar with jQuery. They've got a lot of great tools out there in terms of rendering and providing quick access to data. But the Bootstrap, I think, is probably the biggest thing. Here's where it starts to get interesting, right? Visualforce tags that you would use in your browser development, the bulk of them don't belong on a Visualforce page in the Salesforce1 mobile client. All right. Apex Repeat is your friend. Okay, use it liberally. All right, that's a good thing especially when you're doing list item data. You want to present a lot of information on the thing. You can use your repeats. Output panel, I think it goes right there. Supported but avoidable if you can. Page blocks, anything that requires density. All right, because what's ultimately happening is a lot of processing takes place. In case you didn't know it or you haven't figured it out, the Salesforce1 mobile client renders Visualforce in the built-in web browser on the device. Okay, so it's still a Visualforce page that's rendering HTML, and it's doing all that processing that a Visualforce page does. So we'll get to some of that when we get to some things to keep in mind around JavaScript, style sheets, processing. These are the things that we want to be careful of. And then totally not supported. By the way, this is all covered in the Salesforce1 developer guide. Okay, and that's also available. You can Google it, you'll find it. But that's also available on the developer.salesforce.com site. Okay. Standard Visualforce tags. So, I mean, typically, like I said, try to avoid them if you can. Leverage standard HTML markup, okay? And then mobile optimized, keyword here, mobile optimized style sheets, okay? Use those things. Like I said, the Salesforce1 Bootstrap, SF1, Twitter Bootstrap, those are probably the best way to go. If you have to use structure tags, okay, use the one column layout. All right, well, and hopefully that makes some sense because your phone is, you try to get two columns, it'd be pretty hard. All right, so I just showed you the style guide. Wanted to show you that. That was really good. Let's see. Oh, it's moving. My screen isn't moving, though. All right. Sorry about that. My things went forward on me. There we go. So, apologies. My screen is showing a different thing. All right. So the business logic and data binding. Three things to remember. Avoid view state. If you don't know what view state is, count your blessings. Okay. But you want to avoid it if at all possible. And you can do that with a couple of things. We'll see that. And then use JavaScript frameworks like Angular, Backbone to provide the structure. Again, you're looking to leverage that model view controller environment and take advantage of the capabilities that are built into these libraries. JavaScript remoting. Okay, this is the ability for you to leverage JavaScript, reach into your custom controllers, and pull out data that way. The advantage here is that you're avoiding view state. You're going directly to the controller to have it pull out the information that you're looking for to render on that page. Okay, it's a direct call to that. All right, it's stateless, and it avoids that view state. View state will come as you're using that Apex form tag. All right, and it moves data back and forth because HTML is stateless. So we have this little view state thing, but that can get really big. And you don't want that on your mobile devices. Visualforce remote objects. Remote objects have just gone GA. You can use these things now. They're no longer in pilot or in beta. And a remote object, again, is custom Apex. It's in your controller. You can actually tag the method as a remote. And I apologize, I can't do that. But if you look here on the screen, it's right up there where it says remote objects, you've got, there's the Apex tags. It does not have the corresponding custom controller, but you tag it much like you would with the @ remote action, and then you can invoke that again directly from JavaScript. The pro is that you're going directly to your custom code, you're pulling it directly from the database, you're doing the manipulation you need to do, you're not capturing any of that view state, and you can go there. The trade-offs, though, is you got a little bit more, JavaScript on the front end that you need to manage. But it's a good trade-off because at the end of the day, it's the capturing of that information that you're looking for, not necessarily the view state. jQuery, AngularJS, Backbone.js, Knockout, and I think we just announced like a half a dozen other popular JavaScript libraries and mobile support today, or will be happening over the next couple of days. And there we go. Navigation, this is an important thing right here. This is where you'll need to resolve the fact that you're either in the mobile browser and passing in one form of a URL as opposed to passing it the way you would using the standard mobile browser. It's a simple test, right? Take a look and make sure, using some JavaScript, make sure that you're in either the warehouse, you're in the mobile client, and you can check to see if that's the case, or checking to see if you are on the browser. All right, so you've got to have the checks in there to see how you want to capture and display the URLs, especially if when I press submit, you're expecting me to go to the account record that you just created. Okay. Again, the Salesforce1 object, SF1, S-Force1, that's the JavaScript object that you can use that provides the functionality that we see here on the right. Navigate to S object is probably the most commonly used, but you can take advantage of all of the other direct access to the device as well. So whether I'm editing a record or creating a record, I can use those. That's also documented in the app developer guide as well. So you want to take a look at that. Again, things to remember on navigation: avoid using window open. You don't want manipulating the window location href directly isn't going to work. External links will open a new child browser, probably not what you're looking for. Internal links will open within the current window. The best thing I can tell you as far as that goes sometimes is just get comfortable with the different ways of invoking those URLs between the browser and the mobile device, and you should be okay. All right. So, and I'm running through this because my clock is telling me I get 58 seconds left. We got a slow start. There's the navigational check I mentioned right there. There's navigate to S-Force1 object. You can see it right there, and I'm doing a check to see if I'm either in Salesforce is undefined. If it's not undefined and it's not null, then I know that I have the S-Force object in it as JavaScript. I know I'm in the browser, in the mobile client. Otherwise, I'm in the browser, and I use a standard URL for action there, and I can go ahead and get at my account that way. Device access is pretty much through PhoneGap, Cordova. That's what we use, by the way, the mobile client for Salesforce on iOS and Android. We leverage Cordova. You can actually use any mobile container and the mobile SDKs to build custom applications, but the out-of-the-box downloadable client is built using this. And it provides you direct access, but you can, like I mentioned earlier, take advantage of the geolocation API as well as the camera. You can grab that as well. So the things that you want to really kind of performance in Salesforce1 really is performance, right? You've really got to test. Look at the libraries that you're using. Minimize as much as possible around the JavaScript and the style sheets. The more you load in to that page, and you might have even seen it in some of your testing and development. If you've got a lot of style sheet information in there, if you've got a lot of JavaScript, or if you're using external JavaScript libraries, the more you pop in there, the more time you get to transmit, and then the client has to unfold them and use them. Okay, it's happening in a browser in the client as opposed to anything that's happening natively. Okay. I'll be posting this deck to the All Dreamforce chatter feed, Gordon Jackson, okay, and I've just gone a minute over, so what I'm going to do is go directly to, thank you, well, but there's more, oh yeah, more. Pay attention. All right, you're going to hear terms like Lightning. You're going to hear terms like App Builder. All right, and you're going to see those in the next couple of days. And it's specifically around drag and drop componentry layered on top of the platform for building these custom mobile experiences with a little less code and a lot more opportunity around components. And those components are actually multi-platform functional, meaning they'll render nicely on your mobile phone, but they'll also do the right thing in the web browser as well. So that's what you want to pay attention to. That's the only sort of leakage I'm going to give. I apologize for going over. I apologize for the late start, and I apologize for running through this. The deck will be out there. Gordon Jackson. It'll be on the All Dreamforce feed. I'll post that in a few minutes. And I'll be loitering if anyone has any questions or wants to wrap. Thank you so much for coming.